yesterday, Shohei publicly first time I'm going to U.S. next year and play. And same time we heard it's very risky for him to continue to play as a two-way player. And I know some teams consider him as the only starting pitcher. So you don't need to talk about Ohtani, but can you talk about how risky it is to play as a two-way player?
I mean, I think it's obviously more difficult than just playing one side of the ball, but we definitely think that it's doable for someone who's talented enough to do both. It takes being a little creative and trying to kind of figure out a schedule and figure out recovery days, but we definitely think that it is doable, and if we're ever to sign a player who's talented enough to do both, we'd look forward to the challenge of being creative to figure that out.
Andrew, I know this is all still fresh from last week and how that unfolded. I'm curious how much of what we saw during the postseason, the decisions that Dave Roberts made, how much of that was him? And how much of that was organizational decisions that you guys got around and talked about? Hey, if this happens, here's how we think it's best to go about it.
Well, I don't think you can ever fully appreciate how games will play out. You look at Game 5 of the World Series, and it played out in ways that I don't think anyone's imagination could have drawn it up. But I mean, I think Dave, our coaches, do a tremendous job of preparing before a game and really knowing the strengths of our players and putting them in the best positions to succeed. I think any really good organization, there's good communication throughout, and that not only is about game strategy or players, but it's also about trades and free agent signings, and our coaches and Doc are a big part of our strategy in terms of off-season and guys. So I think it's just a very good dynamic among our group, which is all of us have the exact same goal in mind, which is to win a championship and then build from that and win multiple championships. So I think there's a really good working dynamic among the group that is conducive to us, hopefully winning for a long time.
But you have a sense of when things are unfolding, you guys have talked about it, and here's the scenario, this is probably the way we want to go if this happens.
I mean, there are certainly things that play out in a game where I would have done something differently if I were the manager. Probably more often than not, it didn't work out the way. If I had done it my way, it wouldn't have worked out. I'm just not as close to that part of the game as I am to other aspects of it. I think that's the great thing about baseball. There's going to be things we do this offseason that people are going to second guess and challenge, and there's things that go on in a game where people second guess it. That's not unique to the Dodgers or anywhere else, and that's the nature of the game, and it's what makes it great. Everyone has opinions, but obviously the people who are around the group the most and just have that feel, that's part of that day-to-day rhythm that those guys are able to establish.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at this World Series, you had two teams that have front offices and managers that work together very closely. I think on both sides, especially when you're in a World Series and you've got off days and got plenty of time to prepare, I think there are conversations that happen between the manager, his coaching staff, players, front office about things that could happen and how the game may unfold. But at the end of the day, those A.J. Hinch and Dave Roberts were the two guys managing their teams, and as moments came up, it was their decision of what to do. And I think if you ask them, they would say it was informed by some of those conversations, but that is what it means to be a major league manager, that you face a lot of 51-49 decisions, and you have to decide in that moment what you think is best for your team.
Accepting that the bullpen needs an annual rebuild, like they always do, where do you see areas of improvement, areas of need in that roster?
I think it's really too early for us to say. We've started to have conversations about it, but with so many of the employee contracts and thinking about things from filling voids in our organization from people that have left. There's just a lot of that right now. We started the dialogue with other teams and agents just to make sure we're near the backboard. But in terms of like actual strategy and exactly how we want to go about it, we're still formulating.
Do you guys expect to be under the luxury tax next year?
What's the luxury tax? I don't know. I mean, it's still way too early. We don't really have a great feel for, exactly how things will play out. The one thing that we are confident about is that we will, get CBR in February with a team that is in position to compete for a championship.
If I say about 7 starters in control next season, if all of them are healthy, could be a very high-class problem. How are you going to handle it?
I hope we have that headache. Things tend to play out over the offseason and into spring training. But if we're fortunate enough to get to opening day where that's the case, we look forward to having that conversation, because much more often than not, you're trying to figure out how to round out your rotation as opposed to having too many.
One of the most competitive and exciting World Series that most people can remember, and certainly in recent memories, talked about as one of the most exciting and competitive. What is your appreciation that you take away from how difficult it is to even get there, let alone get to a game 7?
Yeah, I think for me, at the end of every season, and it doesn't last that long, but, at the end of whether you lose in the DS, the CS, the World Series, obviously, each round it's progressively harder to get there, increasingly harder. It's just at the end of that, it's just how daunting it is that just to get back to that moment, and the off season and spring training and the season and the ups and downs that come with it. It is a tremendous accomplishment to get through a 162 game season. On top, it's a tremendous accomplishment to win the division series. It's a tremendous accomplishment to win the CS, and obviously the ultimate accomplishment is to win the World Series. But it is daunting for about 24 hours at the end of each season just to think about how to get back to where you were 12 hours earlier. But I think it's also what motivates us, and we're all extremely competitive, and it's about trying to figure out how to get back to that point and finish it off.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that, I think going to a Game 7 of a World Series, it really makes stark how fine the line can be, between having a somber press conference like this one and having your players show up on Saturday Night Live. I do think, to Andrew's point, it's really motivating. I mean, it was exhilarating for us as an organization to get to the World Series, to see the way our fans responded to it. And again, in the course of the last few years, we've kind of taken steps each year, towards the ultimate goal. And, our hope and our goal is, a year from now we'll be able to say that was another stepping stone for us.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night when you look back at it?
It's funny, in our meetings the last, 5 or 6 days now, I don't even know what today is, but in the last 5 or 6 days, we'll be meeting about things and have some real momentum towards figuring things out. And then something will come up about some game, and we'll start to go down that rabbit hole. And we're like, stop, it's not helpful. And we'll kind of shift our attention back to what we're doing.
Is that rabbit hole Game 5 or Game 7?
Take your pick. I think any of the 4 we lost, you can go through it.
Can you guys just provide an update on the farm director search, where that's at, how many people you're looking at?
Yeah, we're just starting to really wrap our arms around it. It's a significant position in our front office, and we're starting the process of kind of culling names from external candidates, and obviously we have some people internal, and we're starting to figure out exactly when to start that, but we're also not going to rush it, being how significant the role is.
And you're going to hire a main guy and an assistant, I take it?
Excuse me, outside of Seager, are there any other players with like health issues, any like procedures that have to happen in these first few days after the season? Or what?
Not that I can think of. I don't think so. It's just funny because we've got so many different things going on. No, nothing that I can think of. No.
Yeah, but I mean, even among, I think for us, even the guys that are still in the kind of rehab recovery process, guys like Tolles and Urias, I mean, those are going to be important recoveries that, you know, we're going to monitor over the course of the offseason. I mean, those guys were, you know, potentially really big parts of our team, and we're excited to get them back next year. So those are a couple of the ones we're going to be watching most closely.
When do you expect Tolles to be available?
We expect him ready in spring training.
So theoretically opening day?
Yeah, I mean, we expect him to be ready in spring training. Exactly what that means and what kind of load he can take on in February, March, we're not sure. But we're optimistic that he'll be ready opening day. Thank you, guys.
All right, that wraps up the press conference at Dodger Stadium. Andrew Friedman, the president of baseball operations, and GM Farhan Zaidi. Andrew saying not sure if he will ever get over that Game 7 loss in the World Series to the Houston Astros. Farhan saying, yes, it's disappointing coming oh so close, but he feels like 2017 is something they can build on. Looking forward to 2018, thinks they'll be more prepared next time. Still more reaction coming up from Dodger Stadium. This was the scene after the Dodgers won their first National League pennant in 29 years, hoping to go one step further.